In this section, we're going to talk about how one would use a compressor on a channel. And I've brought up here my digital compressor here to give you an example. And it's set up pretty much the same way that a rack-mounted compressor is. And it has a threshold, ratio, attack, release, and an output gain. And we'll briefly talk about these here. What I want to do is I'm going to play you a track now. One would ask, well, why would you use a compressor? The perfect example is a vocalist who screams into your vocal mic. And without the compressor, the sound engineer would have to literally sit with one hand on the vocal fader and bring it up and down accordingly to eliminate the vocalist's screams from distorting the system. And that's called riding the fader. A better way to do that is to insert a compressor on that vocal channel and let the compressor do the work. What the compressor does, as we know, is it looks for the peaks in the audio signal and compresses or drops them down to a predetermined level. I'm going to play you a track here, and I want you to listen to the vocalist. In the beginning here, she's not really on the microphone, and she's singing very softly. But in the end, she comes back and starts really moving some air and being much more dynamic. And I'm going to run it without the compressor on it first, so you get the idea of what the sound man would have to deal with trying to bring out her vocal when it's soft, yet not let it jump out in the mix when she got more dynamic. So here it is without the compressor. At this point, the sound man will be bringing her up on the channel. And at this point, unless the engineer had reacted quick enough, that would be extremely loud in the mix. Possibly even to the point of distortion. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and insert a compressor on that vocal track, on her vocal channel. And one sets the compressor in two ways here. The most two important ways are the threshold and the ratio. And the threshold determines at what level the compressor actually says, okay, this is a peak, and I'm going to start compressing from this point up. And I'm going to go ahead and play the track again here and engage the compressor here, and I'll show you graphically here how that represents.
You begged for the reason why
And as you can see,
why I couldn't release my fear.
At her quietest points, it's not engaging.
Now I wipe away my tears.
But as soon as she goes above that point, the compressor kicks in. Compressing her level down
There's nothing I can do, just
to the level at which her softest point was. We'll go ahead and watch it again.
You begged for the reason why I couldn't release my fears. Now I wipe away my tears.
As you can see, Away My Tears was not compressed. It was one of the most quietest points in the song. But as she got more dynamic, the compressor took over and brought her level back down to the level of that low point, so that to the listener, it did not jump out in the mix. The next button that we need to talk about is the ratio button. And the ratio basically determines how hard the compressor squashes the peak. The higher the ratio, the harder the compressor will squash the peak. And as you can see here in the graph, as it changes, the angle changes. When working with vocals, you don't really want to compress more than about 2.5 to 1. For other instruments like kick drum and bass guitar, you can go up to 4 and even higher. The higher that you go in the ratio, as the compressor begins to kick in and squash the peaks, the real dynamics of the sound begin to become affected and can actually dullen the instrument or the sound. So you have to be very careful how much ratio you use. The other two knobs are the attack and the release, and pretty much they are as they are marked. The attack determines how long in milliseconds the compressor will allow the signal to be there at a peak before it engages. And the release is just the opposite, is in milliseconds how long the compressor should stay compressed after the peak has gone away. The attack control is used a lot. You can use it to allow just a little bit of the peak to get through before the compressor kicks in, this keeps the dynamics a little hotter. And finally we have our makeup gain, or this would be on the unit itself, it would be the output level. As we know, every time we insert a electronic device into the audio chain, like we would be doing here, inserting a compressor into the channel on your mixing board, there is a loss of signal that has to be made back up by the device, and in this case it's called makeup gain.